There are places in the realms where silence is not peace but warning. Places where the stone itself remembers what should never be invited inside. Deep beneath the cliffs of an island that does not appear on any honest map, far below the gilded arenas where champions bleed for the amusement of gods, there stands a temple older than memory. Its walls are veined with dried offerings. Its floors are scarred by the rituals of a sorcerer who has lived too long, learned too much, and forgotten the meaning of restraint. Shang Tsung walks those halls tonight with the slow patience of a man who believes the universe owes him another favor. He has emptied dynasties to fuel his arts. He has stolen the souls of warriors whose names once shook continents. And still, it has not been enough. The next tournament approaches. His enemies grow stronger. His masters grow impatient. He needs a champion who cannot be matched. A weapon shaped like a man. So he prepares the rite. Candles of black wax burn without smoke. Sigils older than human language pulse softly across the floor, drinking in the torchlight. At the center of the chamber, a circular gate of obsidian and bone waits like a closed eye. Shang Tsung lifts his hands, and his voice rolls out in a tongue that does not belong to any living throat. He calls into the dark. He asks the dark to send him a killer. The gate opens, but what answers him is not a killer. It is a furnace. A wall of red light slams through the chamber, hot enough to blister the obsidian, bright enough to turn the sorcerer's eyes into mirrors. He shields his face, expecting the silhouette of a mercenary, a beast, perhaps a fallen god in chains. He has summoned such things before. He knows their shapes. He knows their hungers. He does not know this shape. Through the rift steps a figure that does not belong to any tournament Shang Tsung has ever curated. The armor is heavy and pitted, scorched along its edges, marked with sigils that look less like decoration and more like warnings written by something that survived. A green visor catches the firelight and gives nothing back. No breath escapes the helmet. No greeting. No threat. Only the slow, deliberate weight of boots that have walked across oceans of corpses and never paused for any of them. In one gauntlet, a weapon. In the other, a stillness. Shang Tsung opens his mouth to speak the binding words, the old syllables that chain summon things to his will. He has done this 1,000 times. He is the master of this ritual. He is the spider at the center of this web. He never gets the chance. The stranger turns his head, slowly, the way a hunter turns toward a sound he has heard 1,000,000 times before. Not toward Shang Tsung, not yet. Toward something far worse in the sorcerer's eyes. Toward the great demonic guardian statue that has watched over this temple since before the first tournament was ever called. A horned, snarling idol of carved infernal stone. A symbol of the pack this place was built upon. The stranger reads it the way a wolf reads a footprint. Then he moves. There is no challenge. There is no roar. There is only motion, and the statue is no longer a statue. It is dust and shrapnel and a long, cracking echo that shakes the temple to its roots. The walls weep grit. The candles gutter. Somewhere far above, in the upper sanctums, a bell that has not rung in 1,000 years begins to ring on its own. Shang Tsung stumbles backward. He has summoned monsters. He has summoned warlord. He has summoned things with names so old they can only be whispered. None of them ever looked at his temple the way this one does. None of them ever looked at his idols and treated them like vermin. He realizes in a cold, falling moment what he has done. He did not summon a fighter. Fighters can be bargained with. Fighters can be tempted, flattered, leashed. He summoned a force, and the force has already chosen its first target. Behind the visor, something the sorcerer cannot see narrows. Something that smells the rot beneath the temple, the corruption beneath the tournament, the old infernal contracts woven into every brick of this place. The slayer takes a step forward. The gate that should never have opened has opened, and it is far too late to close it. News travels strangely between realms. It does not move in clean lines. It moves in rumor, in whispered prayer, in the trembling reports of soldiers who saw something they were not supposed to live through. And in the days that follow the breaking of Shang Tsung's temple, those whispers begin to rise from every corner of Outworld and beyond. A figure has been seen walking the borderlands. He does not ride. He does not rest. He carries weapons that crack the air when they speak, and his armor catches the light like an old promise nobody remembers making. He passes through villages without taking food, without taking coin, without taking names. He does not ask where the tournament is. He simply walks toward it. The tournament masters laugh at first. They have heard every kind of rumor. They have seen wandering swordsmen, vengeful monks, exiled princes, all of them certain they would be the one to topple the great game. They all came. They all bowed. They all bled. The arena is a furnace that turns ego into ash, and the masters trust it the way a smith trusts his anvil. So they send their greatest performers to greet the stranger. The first is a swordsman whose name is sung in 3 languages. He blocks the road, twirling his blade in a flourish meant for crowds. He demands a challenge in the proper form. He waits for the bow that always comes. It does not come. The slayer does not slow. He does not draw a long blade. He does not honor the ritual. There is a single, dull motion, the sound of something deciding, and the swordsman is no longer in the road. The road is simply emptier than it was a heartbeat ago. The slayer keeps walking. The next is a duelist with 100 fans and a famous laugh. The laugh dies in his throat the moment the visor turns toward him. He raises his weapon. He shouts the opening line of his signature taunt. The taunt becomes a gurgle, becomes a silence. The slayer keeps walking. By the time he reaches the lower arenas, every fighter in the realm has heard the same impossible thing. The stranger does not speak. He does not boast. He does not break stance to acknowledge applause. He does not even look at the crowd. He looks only at his next target, and only for as long as it takes that target to stop existing. This is not how Mortal Kombat is fought. In Mortal Kombat, fear is a performance. The fighters wear it like makeup. Scorpion drags his chains and lets the heat of his hellfire wash across the sand, savoring the gasps in the stands. Reptile hisses from the shadows because the shadows are part of his act. Even the cruelest champions understand the ritual. The bow, the taunt, the slow circle, the roar of the crowd before the kill. The slayer does none of this. When Scorpion finally faces him, the specter unleashes a column of fire that has melted iron gates and broken champions twice his size. The flames roll across the visor and curl harmlessly along the scorched plates of the armor, as if greeting an old friend. The slayer walks into the fire. He walks through the fire. And the specter, for the first time in centuries, takes a step backward. Outworld soldiers stationed around the perimeter break ranks before they are even ordered to. They have fought sorcerers, beasts, gods. They have stood firm against tides of bone and shadow. But there is something in this advance that their training did not prepare them for. There is no rage in it. There is no joy. There is only a job being done. And the seasoned champions, the ones who have stood on the highest platforms and watched lesser men die at their feet, feel something unfamiliar crawl up the inside of their ribs. Not the fear of a stronger opponent. They have known that. Strength can be challenged. Strength can be outwitted. Strength can be flattered or flanked or worn down. This is not strength. This is certainty. And certainty cannot be challenged at all. In the high pavilions above the arena, where the air is cleaner and the politics are dirtier, the defenders of Earthrealm gather in private. They have watched the rumors become reports. They have watched the reports become bodies. And now they watch the man in the green visor walk through the lower courtyards, as if every door belongs to him. Raiden stands at the balcony with his arms folded, lightning curling lazily along the edges of his hat. Beside him, Liu Kang watches the figure below with the steady eyes of a monk who has seen far too many wars begin in exactly this way. Around them, the other champions wait for an order. Sonya's hand rests near her sidearm. Kung Lao's fingers brush the brim of his hat without thinking. Johnny Cage, for once, says nothing. It is Raiden who finally speaks. We do not engage him. Not yet. The others look at him. They have rarely heard him sound uncertain. He is a god of thunder. Uncertainty is not in his repertoire. But tonight there is a softness behind his words, the softness of a man choosing each one with care, because the wrong word might wake something that has so far been kind enough to ignore them. We approach him as we would approach a storm, Raiden continues, with caution, with curiosity, without provocation. Because if I am right about what walks in our realm tonight, then the worst thing we could possibly do is treat him like an enemy. They go down to meet him as a small delegation, not as champions of the tournament, not as warriors of Earthrealm, just as people who would like very much to keep breathing. Liu Kang takes the front. Raiden walks half a pace behind, his presence stretched outward like a hand searching in the dark. The Slayer stops when they approach. He does not speak. He does not lower his weapon, but he stops. That in itself feels like a miracle. Liu Kang bows slightly, the way one bows to a force of nature rather than a man. He introduces himself. He introduces Earthrealm. He says carefully that they wish only to understand. The visor tilts a fraction of a degree, and that is the only acknowledgement they receive. Raiden behind him closes his eyes. He has read the souls of warlords and the dreams of dying gods. He has reached into the storms of Netherrealm and pulled out the names of demons. And now he reaches gently toward the figure standing in front of him, expecting to find rage, expecting to find ruin, expecting to find the slow, sour rot of a soul that has bathed in too much killing. He finds something else. He finds endless conflict, yes. A war so old it has worn grooves into the man who fights it. He finds anger certainly vast and patient and unrelenting. But beneath the violence, beneath the iron and the fire, he does not find corruption. He does not find the taint of the Netherrealm. He does not find the sticky residue of evil that clings to the souls of every demon he has ever touched. He finds a purpose. Raiden opens his eyes slowly. He understands in that moment that this is not a man who has come to take their realm. This is a man who has come because something in their realm called to him. Something they did not know was screaming. The realization arrives the way realizations always do, a fraction of a second too late. The shadows along the courtyard ripple. The torches dim. From beneath the flagstones, things that should not be in Earthrealm at all begin to claw their way upward. Black-veined limbs, fanged mouths sewn with old curses. Demonic shapes that have been hiding in the bones of the tournament grounds for longer than anyone living has been alive. The champions move to defend. The Slayer is already moving. He does not look at Liu Kang. He does not look at Raiden. He does not finish the diplomatic exchange that was barely beginning. He simply turns toward the closest demon and ends it before it has finished standing. And Earthrealm finally understands. He is not here for their crown. He is here for whatever lies beneath it. The fight in the courtyard ends as quickly as it began, but the silence afterward is not the silence of victory. It is the silence of people who have just learned something they cannot unlearn. The bodies of the demons steam where they fell, their black ichor hissing against the stones. Liu Kang kneels beside one of them, lifting the broken jaw with careful fingers, and his face goes pale beneath the firelight. Raiden does not need to ask. He already knows. These are not new arrivals. These are old residents. They have been here, beneath the tournament, for so long that the rot of their presence has soaked into the very mortar of the place. The demons did not invade tonight. They were exposed. The Slayer simply walked past the curtain and revealed what had been standing behind it for centuries. Raiden gathers the champions in a chamber far from listening ears, and he tells them a story he has only ever told in pieces. He tells them of the first tournaments, of the bargains struck in the long dark before Earthrealm even had a name for itself. He tells them how Shang Tsung's line, and others older than Shang Tsung, learned that pure souls were powerful, but tortured souls were currency. He tells them how the arenas were never just arenas. They were engines, soul engines, built above veins of infernal energy that the tournament masters tapped into the way a farmer taps a tree for sap. Every execution fed something beneath the stage. Every fatality, every flourish, every crowd-pleasing horror was a coin dropped into a much older purse. The brutality was not a side effect of the tournament. It was the point. The fighters listen in a stillness that is almost reverent. Some of them are angry. Some of them are sick. Johnny Cage, who has cracked jokes in front of literal gods, finds that his throat has gone dry. They have all spilled blood on those sands. They have all heard the crowds roar. They have all, in their own ways, been part of the engine without knowing it. Liu Kang stands. He has spent his life believing in the tournament as a sacred thing, a test, a way for realms to settle their fates without devouring one another whole. To learn that the foundation of that belief is wet with stolen souls is not an idea he can simply absorb. It is a wound. It bleeds inward, and yet when he speaks, his voice is steady. Then we go down, he says. We see it for ourselves, and we end it. The Slayer is already at the entrance. He has not waited for them to finish their council. He has not waited for permission. There is a doorway in the lower vaults of the arena, sealed with sigils so old that no living priest remembers carving them, and he has decided, without consultation, that the doorway is going to open. He places one gauntlet against the seal. The sigils flare in protest. The seal screams. The seal loses. The doorway opens onto a stairwell that descends much farther than the arena's foundation should allow. Earthrealm's champions follow him down, torches in hand, their breath fogging an air that should not be cold this far underground. The stone changes as they descend. It stops being stone. It becomes something else, something that pulses faintly under their fingertips, as if the walls have a slow, patient heartbeat. They pass cells. Inside the cells are things that were once warriors. Long-vanished tournament losers, men and women whose deaths were celebrated above as honorable defeats, hanging now in chains that have grown into their bones. Their eyes find the torchlight. Their mouths shape names that no one has spoken aloud in 100 years. They are still alive, in the way that suffering is alive. They are still feeding the engine. Liu Kang stops beside one of them, and his hands tighten until the knuckles pale. Deeper still, the catacombs open into vast chambers where chained horrors crouch in pools of their own light. Possessed guardians, grafted onto the architecture, their armor fused with the walls. Portal engines the size of cathedrals, their gears made of teeth, their pistons pumping a slow black tide of stolen breath. The smell is not a smell. It is a memory of every cruelty that has ever been performed above, distilled and stored. The champions of Earthrealm, the greatest fighters of their age, stand at the lip of that chamber and feel small in a way they have not felt since they were children. Beside them, the Slayer simply lifts his weapon. For him, this is not revelation. This is recognition. He has walked this kind of hall before. He has broken this kind of engine before. The mission, which was already simple, becomes simpler still. Destroy everything below. What happens next is not a battle in any sense the tournament would recognize. There are no rounds. There are no judges. There is no announcer leaning into a polished microphone to whip the crowd into ecstasy. There is only the catacomb, and the catacomb is on fire. The first wave comes at them in a tide. Lesser demons, the foot soldiers of the engine, things that have spent centuries in the dark waiting for an excuse to be useful. They pour out of side passages and ceiling fissures, claws scraping the walls, mouths peeled wide around teeth that should not fit inside heads that small. Earthrealm's champions move into formation ready to hold the line. The Slayer does not hold lines. He moves into the tide, through the tide. The tide breaks around him the way water breaks around a blade dropped from a great height. His weapons sing in short, brutal phrases. A demon's skull becomes paste. Another's ribs become an exit wound. A third tries to flank him and discovers in the last instant of its existence that there is no flank. There is only the front, and the front is everywhere he is. Liu Kang and Raiden press in behind him, and for the first time in any of their lives, they are not the apex. They are not the strongest figures in the room. They are escorts. They cover his back not because he needs it, but because it gives them something to do that is not standing still and watching a god of slaughter at work. Kung Lao's hat takes a possessed guardian apart in a single arc. Sonya empties magazine after magazine into things that should not be standing after the third shot. Johnny Cage, of all people, finds himself fighting beside the Slayer for half a heartbeat, ducking under a clawed arm, and when he glances sideways at the visor, he swears, quietly and without humor, that he has never been more afraid of anyone on his own side. The catacombs answer with worse. The chained horrors rise from their pools, their lengths uncoiling, their throats opening into furnaces. Possessed champions long thought dead lurch out of the walls, their old tournament armor fused into their flesh, screaming the moves that once made them famous. One of them was a hero. One of them was a monster. Down here in the engine, those distinctions have rotted into the same gray meat. It does not matter. The Slayer reads them all the same way. As work, as rust on a thing that needs to be cleaned. Above ground, the tournament does not yet understand what is happening below. The crowds are still in their seats. The vendors are still hawking their wares. The musicians are still playing the slow, dramatic procession that signals the start of the evening's main bouts. Shang Tsung, in his high gallery, watches the floor of the arena with the eyes of a man who is beginning to suspect that his own foundations are no longer entirely under his control. He feels it first as a tremor, then as a crack hairline running across the central platform. Then as a long, slow groan from somewhere beneath the sand, the sound of a structure that has held its breath for centuries finally being asked to exhale. He moves. He calls upon every advantage he has hoarded across 1,000 years of cheating death. He empowers his strongest champions with infernal gifts, layering them in the same stolen energies that have always served him so well. He sends them down into the catacombs in waves, blessed with the hatred of the engine itself, sworn to bring back the visor on a spike. It fails. Each wave only feeds the Slayer's rhythm. Each new champion is another beat in a song he has been performing since before this realm had stars. The empowered fighters are stronger, faster, crueler than they were above, and it makes no difference at all. The engine that empowers them is the same engine he has come to break. He drinks their power the way a fire drinks dry timber and grows. Above ground, the central platform finally splits. A pillar of red light erupts from the wound, and with it comes hell. Not as a metaphor, as a fact. Demons claw upward into the open air of the arena for the first time in living memory, pouring across the sands the crowd had paid to see entertainment on. The audience scatters. The musicians drop their instruments. The vendors abandon their carts. The ritualized cruelty of the tournament collapses in a single breath into the only kind of horror that does not bother to perform. And rising up after the demons, climbing out of the same wound that birthed them, comes the green visor. The crowd for one frozen moment sees both at once. The flood of hell, and the thing hell has been running from. For the demons, this realm was supposed to be their hidden pantry, their feeding ground, their secret garden, fertilized for centuries by every fatality the tournament ever staged. Now their pantry has a hunter in it, and the hunter is already reloading. When the dust finally begins to settle, it does not settle gently. It settles the way ash settles after a forest has burned down, slow and gray and full of small, glowing reminders. The arena is no longer an arena. The catacombs beneath it are no longer secret. The soul engines that fed the tournament for centuries lie cracked open, their stolen breath bleeding out in long pale ribbons that drift upward into a sky that has not seen such honest light in a very long time. And in the high places where the elder gods watch the fates of realms with the patience of old judges, there is, for once, a meeting they did not expect to hold. They have always preserved balance. That is their function. That is their pride. They have weighed Earthrealm against Outworld, mortal against God, light against shadow, and always, always, they have found ways to keep the scales steady. When tournaments grew cruel, they called it tradition. When champions vanished into the dark beneath the sands, they called it sacrifice. When sorcerers fed on souls behind closed doors, they called it the way of things. They called it balance. But balance built on hidden suffering is not balance. It is a lie wearing the shape of justice. And tonight, that lie has been dragged into the open by a man who did not even know he was holding it. He simply saw demons, and he killed demons, and in doing so, he uncovered every quiet bargain the realms had made to keep themselves comfortable. The elder gods descend. They come not with thunder, but with weight. The sky above the broken arena dims, then deepens, then opens. They speak in voices that are not voices, and the realms feel the words in their bones before they hear them in their ears. They demand answers. They demand explanations. They demand, in the old, terrible way of gods, that someone account for what has just been revealed. It is Liu Kang who steps forward first. He does not bow as deeply as he once would have. He does not lower his eyes the way the old protocols demand. He stands on the cracked stones of the platform he has fought on his entire life, and he tells the elder gods, without softening it, that the system they have all defended was rotten at its root. That the tournament was never the pure crucible they pretended it to be. That every champion who fell honorably on these sands had their souls siphoned into engines they did not consent to feed. He tells them that he will not defend it any longer. He tells them that he will help build something else. Other champions step up beside him. Not all of them. Some still cling to the old ways because the old ways are familiar, and familiarity is the hardest god to kill. But many step forward. Earthrealm's defenders, Outworld warriors who lost siblings to fatalities they were told to celebrate. Even a few who once served Shang Tsung directly, their faces tight with the recognition of complicity. Through all of it, the Slayer says nothing. He stands a little apart, on a slab of fallen stone, the last embers of the engine guttering at his feet. He does not address the elder gods. He does not introduce himself. He does not present a list of demands. The visor turns slowly, taking in the gathered champions, the gathered gods, the gathered ruin. And then, with the same quiet purpose that has driven him through every chamber of this place, he sets his weapon down. It is the smallest gesture he has made since he arrived. It is the loudest. The elder gods feel it. Liu Kang feels it. Even Shang Tsung, somewhere in the wreckage of his ambitions, feels it. The man who has shattered their foundations is not asking for a throne. He is not asking for tribute. He is not even asking for thanks. He is telling them, in the only language he has ever needed, that the rod is gone. The rest is theirs to figure out. For the first time in a very long time, the realms are forced to reconsider what power was supposed to be for in the first place. The portals stabilize slowly, the way wounds stabilize when something patient finally lets them rest. Across the realms, the reverberations of what happened beneath the arena ripple outward in quieter and quieter circles. The tournament stands shattered but cleaner than before. The vaults have been emptied. The chained have been freed, or, where freedom was no longer possible, finally allowed to die at last. The soul engines lie in cooling fragments, harmless now, more memory than machine. The new order does not arrive in a single proclamation. It arrives in small choices. Liu Kang refuses the next execution. Raiden refuses the next secret bargain. Outworld warriors refuse the next coin drawn from infernal veins. The champions of every realm look at the sand they stood on and decide, one decision at a time, to stop pretending it was ever clean. Executions end. Hidden soul engines are dismantled, every one of them hunted down with a thoroughness that surprises even the elder gods themselves. Tournaments continue, because realms still need ways to settle themselves, but they continue under different rules. Honest rules. Rules that do not feed anything waiting silently in the dark. Fear, which used to belong to the ordinary fighter waiting for the next round, has changed sides. Now it belongs to the things that used to wait patiently beneath the floorboards. Now it belongs to the demons, the corruptors, the quiet predators who once feasted on what the tournament carelessly threw away. They have learned, all of them, that there is at least one realm no longer safe for their kind. Because somewhere out there a green visor is still walking. At the edge of the broken arena, where the air still smells faintly of cooling iron, the gate that should never have opened opens one final time. It opens at his approach, the way a door opens for someone who built it. The Slayer steps toward the rift, his armor scorched, his weapon silent, his stride unchanged. Liu Kang follows him to the threshold. He does not try to stop him. He simply stands there, and after a long moment he says quietly that Earth realm will not forget this. That the realms owe him a debt they cannot measure. That if he ever needs allies, he will find them waiting here. The visor tilts a fraction of a degree. There is no answer. There is no nod. There is no parting word offered. He leaves the way he arrived. The portal closes behind him, and the sky above the arena holds its breath, and then exhales fully for the first time in 1,000 years of hidden suffering. Across every realm, the legend begins almost immediately. They tell it differently everywhere, but every version ends the same way. Mortal Kombat once summoned a warrior meant for hell, and learned that some demons should fear hunters too.